Good afternoon, I'm Vashan Brown with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. The Police Federation and INDECOM are this afternoon reacting to a ruling handed down by the UK-based Privy Council. The ruling by the Privy Council determined that INDECOM had no jurisdiction to arrest and prosecute members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force in any offence arising from an incident. Details in this report.
Commissioner of INDECOM Terrence Williams wants the reforms on its powers to arrest and prosecute as recommended by the Joint Select Committee of Parliament, which reviewed the INDECOM Act, to be urgently implemented. His comment follows the ruling Monday morning that his organization does not have jurisdiction to arrest and prosecute members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, the JCF, in any offence arising from an incident. The court determined that INDECOM's powers are limited to investigation. Mr. Williams says the Parliament needs to clearly state the powers of INDECOM.
We have a decision which we will of course have to follow. It's a final decision of the court. It will make some things very difficult. It is not, we believe, what Parliament intended, because the Joint Select Committee of Parliament has since then called for reforms of the INDECOM Act to make the power to arrest and to prosecute very clear. And that was done over 4 years now. And we are hoping that those reforms will now be urgently attended to, because we need INDECOM to have the independence to act.
INDECOM had asked the UK-based Privy Council to quash the March 2018 ruling by the Court of Appeal. Since a Court of Appeal ruling, INDECOM has been submitting its files to the Director of Public Prosecutions for rulings. Meanwhile, the Police Federation has welcomed the Privy Council's decision, which it says has brought a conclusion to a 9-year court battle.
The Police Federation is pleased yet humbled about the ruling from the Privy Council this morning. We have always contended that the INDECOM does not have the power to arrest, charge, or prosecute our members. And our position has been vindicated this morning, and we are pleased that the ruling this morning is a conclusion of the issue once and for all. The issue has been before the court for over 9 years, and we can now move forward with our engagement with INDECOM, knowing that the position that was a contentious one has been clarified, and we can now function as independent entities, carrying out our functions without the encumbrances of this issue.
Rashid Masters, TVJ News.
Meanwhile, the UK law lords determined that the Commission of INDECOM and investigative staff may prosecute offences that arise during an investigation, such as resistance, obstruction, or false statements. On this matter, the Privy Council ruled in favour of INDECOM in its appeal for a reversal of the Court of Appeal's decision to quash the conviction of Deputy Superintendent of Police Albert Dyer. DSP Dyer was found guilty in 2014 of breaching the INDECOM Act. Mr. Williams says he's pleased about this particular ruling because if the decision of the Court of Appeal was affirmed, it would threaten the independence of INDECOM's investigation.
It is historic. It's the first time in about 4 decades that the Privy Council is restoring a conviction that the Court of Appeal had quashed. And the Court of Appeal had quashed it for reasons surrounding whether INDECOM could lawfully make those requests, whether the requests of INDECOM need to be agreed with by the police high command in some way before a police officer is required to comply with it, and other issues. And we're happy that the Privy Council reversed the Court of Appeal on those points, because INDECOM could not operate in circumstances where it needed the police approval for its investigative practices.
Mr. Dyer was accused of preventing members of a police team involved in a fatal shooting from handing over their weapons to INDECOM investigators in 2013. The Privy Council said the defences raised by Mr. Dyer could not provide him with a lawful justification or excuse for failing to comply with the Commission investigators' instructions to give up the police officer's firearms. The judgment said the matter is to be returned to the Court of Appeal for further consideration of the appeal against Mr. Dyer's sentence. The opposition is questioning why the Ministry of Health failed to make checks to ascertain whether Andrews Memorial Hospital in St. Andrew was registered before a deal was inked with the facility to accommodate non-COVID patients of the Kingston Public Hospital. A Sunday Gleaner report has highlighted that only 4 private hospitals are certified to operate under the Nursing Homes Registration Act. The unregistered hospitals include Andrews, which is one of the facilities at the center of police and administrative probes into the death of 23-year-old Jodian Ferron. Opposition spokesman on health, Dr. MORAIS says there was a dereliction of duty by the health ministry.
You are entering into an MOU with a hospital and you have not checked in your due diligence by your officers, by your technocrats in your own ministry to ascertain whether that hospital that you have entered into an MOU with is at least registered by your own standard branch. Are you saying that the people at the ministry and the minister, with all his advisors around, did not tell him that this hospital was not registered? And even if he was told, what steps did he take at that particular point in time to ensure that the hospital becomes registered or at least be brought up to that minimum standards?
The head of the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association, Frank Comito, has warned that some hotels and resorts in the region could collapse if tour operators do not pay outstanding funds. Citing unprecedented pressures facing sub-establishments, Mr. Comito yesterday called for international tour operators who have delayed paying hotels for services delivered to their clients as early as January to expedite reimbursements. In a letter to major trade organizations representing the bulk of tour operators who do business with the Caribbean, Mr. Comito said 69% of hotels reported that they have not been paid on time. He said the average amount owed to hotels by tour operators is $219,000, with a number of properties reporting outstanding amounts in excess of $1 million. Mr. Comito noted that the global crisis was threatening the survival of many Caribbean hotels, particularly small and mid-sized independent properties. And we now take a break on the midday news, but we'll be right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back, continuing the news now. Funds for the payment of compassionate grants under the government's COVID allocation of resources for employees care program will be released to financial institutions today. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark, who was speaking with our news center last night, said the money should be available to applicants later this week.
Here we're talking about approximately 360,000 payments. It's going to be sent in batches electronically from the Accountants General's Department to the financial institutions through the Bank of Jamaica.
A call this afternoon from one opposition senator for teachers to receive a pay increase. Senator Sophia Fraser-Binns said the COVID-19 pandemic is a reminder of the tough task given to teachers to educate the nation's children. Senator Fraser-Binns was speaking in the Upper House on Friday.
I believe all teachers should get a raise of pay. I have a newfound love and respect for teachers. But the truth is that with our new reality, we have to be parents, we have to be teachers, we have to be Sunday school teachers, we have to be counselors. This is what is expected of us. And I think, as we celebrate Child's Month and we unplug the negativity and we encourage positivity, we are forced to think about how we can use this crisis to make it better for our children.
The lawmaker, in the meantime, begged parents not to resort to violence in disciplining their children. For her, many parents may now be on edge due to a combination of financial uncertainty as well as the additional time they must spend with their children.
Our parents are increasingly becoming stressed, and I don't believe that the COVID pandemic has done anything to ease that pressure.
The town of Yala St. Thomas got a cleaning on Sunday. Like a number of municipal corporations across the island in recent weeks, stakeholders in Yalas came together to sanitize public areas to help reduce the spread of COVID-19. Stalls, shop fronts and roads in the town were washed and cleaned by residents and members of the National Solid Waste Management Authority, NSWMA. Members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force were also on hand to ensure the smooth running of the activity. One resident expressed his gratitude.
I am truly happy this morning to see that finally my community has been washed and sanitized and cleaned. It's an effort that we give thanks for, and we look forward for more cooperation both with the government and the people of Yalas.
A cattle farmer in Hounslow, St. Elizabeth, is facing more than $2 million in losses after his animals were allegedly poisoned. The farmer, who owned 18 cows, found 17 of them dead and the other battling for life. The police and the vet were contacted and further checks were made.
I wake up last night about 11:30 because I sleep beside me cow them. I'm going up in there. I saw one first and I go inside and I see 17 of them dead. And I call the vet and the vet test them and say, she not dead by any disease. So most likely a poison. I feel bad to me because I feel no better. Stress out everything and we don't eat for a morning. But I wait even thief him. I go see them just dead through them. So if I cost me a lot to bury them.
This loss is estimated at $2.5 million. The farmer says the loss is a grave setback.
So I do some good business for my house and things and see they driving back again. And that day again, my daughter just died just 2 months ago. So I flick me way back.
To news overseas now, new dates are being tossed around about when a vaccine for coronavirus might become available. A top doctor on the White House Coronavirus Task Force said on Sunday a vaccine for the infection is possible by January on paper. More from the CNN.
President Trump in a Fox News town hall Sunday shifting his projection for U.S. deaths from the coronavirus upward.
I used to say 65,000, and now I'm saying 80 or 90, and it goes up, and it goes up rapidly. But it's still going to be, no matter how you look at it, at the very lower end of the plane.
Trump apparently referring to a March White House projection that said the country could see 100,000 to 240,000 deaths, and also expressing confidence in a vaccine by the end of this year. Dr. Deborah Birx of the White House Coronavirus Task Force said Sunday a vaccine is possible by the start of next year on paper, but would require proper execution. Operation Warp Speed is the Trump administration's project to speed the development of a potential coronavirus vaccine with a goal of making millions of doses by the end of the year. That's despite experts warning of a 12 to 18-month vaccine timeline.
I think there's still a lot of unknowns, but it looks very promising. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we are holding true to some of our golden standards, if you will.
With researchers worldwide engaged in the vaccine race, a group of Northeast states wants to be prepared in case of another wave.
If you look back, as far back as 1918, when they had the flu pandemic that people talk about, it took 10 months. It came in 3 different waves.
New York and 6 states from Rhode Island down to Delaware will partner to buy $5 billion in medical supplies and equipment rather than compete with one another.
And time now for sports. There is increased optimism that the West Indies tour of England will go ahead this summer. Reports are that the England Cricket Board is working towards the teams featuring in the planned 3-test series behind closed doors starting on July 8. This would be a week after the current suspension of the season ends. It would give the players 7 days to play a warm-up match of some kind before international cricket resumes. And that's the Midday News. I'm Vashon Brown. Join us at 7 for a primetime news package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, have a good afternoon.